Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are listening to us or watching us. This is our podcast from PENSART, a cultural center, virtual cultural center. And today we have a very nice guest, something that I have never ever come across before, but we met in a course and I thought that this is a very important topic to talk about because of the growth of heads that people have in their lives now. And yes, through art and through the years, through the centuries, pets have been companions of people. I mean, we see in the large artworks always pets or dogs or cats being there. Dogs are a symbol of faithfulness in the history of art, and cats are kind of like they are no very sort of readable, but they are there as some symbol when they're depicted. But we live with them, and we have everyday lives with them. So we have Julie Wood. She's a therapist specializing in grief for the loss of pets. And also, um, she accompanies always the death of pets in the families. You do therapy for personal purposes and families. Is that right?
Yes, yes.
Right. Welcome to our space, Julie.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here.
Thank you. So, can we start with can you sort of describe a typical session with a client who has recently experienced the death of a beloved pet?
Yes, certainly. So first of all, we would arrange a phone call, okay, so that I can find out more information. They can ask any questions as well, and I can explain how the main therapy process will go ahead. It also, sorry, go on.
No, yes.
It also gives me a chance to explore any religious beliefs that they might have, or what do they believe happens after a person or an animal dies, and so that I'm not saying anything that's going to add to their distress. So for instance, if somebody wasn't spiritualist, I don't want to be talking about rainbow bridges and heaven if that's not their belief for that. So it's all fitted around the client because each person is different. So we would do that on the call as well. And I would make sure that they know the setup, how to set up their camera and everything in case they've never done anything online before.
Okay, so you do it online? Do you do it face to face?
Yes, I do both. But I see many more clients online. I think because they've found my YouTube videos, so I get a lot from America. Most of my clients come from America now.
Right. Now, how did you get into these? I mean, what inspired you? What is this sort of professional interest?
I'm a hypnotherapist and psychotherapist. And what I found was that clients were coming to see me for other things. And then when we checked when it all started after the death of a pet. And it could have been years ago when they were very young, or it could be very recent. And they've tried to bottle up the feelings, or they haven't had a chance to grieve because people didn't understand. So for instance, I had somebody coming to me for a sleep problem. And she said she'd never had a good night's sleep for as long as she could remember. And when we went back, it started when her little dog died, and she was about 8 or 9 years old. And this woman is now in her 40s when she came to see me. So when she was 8 or 9 years old, she had this little dog, and it was quite an elderly dog. It had been backwards and forwards to the vets for different operations. And so they'd during the operations, they'd put the little dog to sleep, and then of course she woke up and she came home. Okay, so they'd used medication on her and all sorts of things. One day my client's getting ready for school and her mum says, "Just so you know, we're going to get the little dog and we're going to take her to the vet and she's going to get put to sleep. Now my client, because the dog had always come back before, she had believed that when she got home from school the dog was going to be there or would be there the following day, and she was so shocked when she realised that the dog had died. And not only had it died, but that it kind of, in her mind, it was deliberate. So it had been given medication to make the dog die, and they were referring to it as being put to sleep because it sounds so much kinder.
Okay.
However,
at this moment, you are actually talking misconceptions about pet loss grief. Because, you're trying to be kind by using an expression, but what you need to actually say is the real happening.
Yes, this is absolutely the case. Language is so important. So because my client believed that her dog was deliberately put to sleep and never woke up again. And so in her little mind, so she's only young and she's in shock, it just goes into her subconscious and she develops this belief that if she goes to sleep, she might not wake up again. So what would happen over the years is that she would go to sleep and immediately wake herself up. So she'd had all the medical tests, like for sleep apnea and things like that, and nothing medical was wrong with her. And so that's when she came to see me, and that's what we discovered. And as soon as her adult self was able to realise and rationalise that, and she was able to say her loving goodbye to a little dog, which we did it in a light trance, then she was absolutely fine. So there's all sorts of reasons that people were coming to see me, not connected as they thought with the death of their pet, but just that they've never grieved properly or they'd misunderstood as a child what was going to happen.
Yeah. So that also takes you, how does the grieving process differ between losing a human loved one and losing a pet? Because is there a difference?
Yes. Usually what happens is the pet is there all the time. So I get people that come to see me who say they feel really, really guilty because they're missing their pet more than they missed a relative, for instance.
Yeah.
But when I ask them how often they saw the relative, it might be an aunt or an uncle or grandparent, or even a parent, then they might say, well, we saw them once a fortnight, or we saw them at Christmas.
Yeah.
And their pet was there 24 hours a day. They probably slept on the bed with them. They were there. A lot of clients say my pet didn't judge me. So they just always loved me, whatever. There was this unconditional love, which you expect from humans and families, but it's not always there. But usually it is because the pet is there more. Okay? So it's natural for them to miss them more than they would a human, but there's this massive sense of, I must be a terrible person because I miss my dog more than I miss my grandma or whatever. But that's not the case. You will miss the person who you see the most, or the animal that you see the most.
So what are the techniques and the specific kind of strategies you employ to support individuals in coping with the loss of a pet?
So first of all, we would talk through it. So what happened, what the worst part was, so why they're upset. Usually it's guilt of some sort, or regret, or self-doubt if they did the right thing or not. And then I would put them into a light trance. So it's a form of hypnosis, but it's not a deep form. And then they get to say their most loving goodbye to their pet. So they get to say all the things they wish they'd have said, didn't have time to say, wanted to explain to them. So for instance, if they had to make a difficult choice between constantly having more and more operations or choosing euthanasia, it's an awful choice to have to make. But you have to make a choice one way or the other. And I have clients that feel guilty because they chose more operations and wish that they'd let their pet live the last few months of their life just as their natural self and not having to go backwards and forwards to the vet. But I also have clients who feel guilty because they wish what if there'd have been another operation? What if there could have been something that they found that would have worked? Or what if they had better insurance and could have afforded better operations?
Yeah.
So whichever way, they kind of feel guilty. So they get a chance to explain to their pet why they made the decision that they did.
Yeah.
What that does is lift away the guilt. So it's not about rushing anybody through grief, because grief can't be rushed. It is a process. But it is about lifting away the guilt and the regret. And that's the most important thing.
So, in your experience, how does the role of pets in people's lives influence the grieving process when they pass away?
So what I find is that people who have worked from home, or people who live by themselves with an animal, there is a bigger space there. Now, it doesn't mean someone in a family loved the animal less, but what it means is there is just this bigger gap there. If somebody is used to having their pet there all the time because they work from home, or if they're like a guide dog or an emotional support dog or something like that, there's practical implications to that as well, because they might not necessarily get another guide dog straight away. So they've lost their friend and their companion that they've had this really close bond with, but they've got this space because there might not be another guide dog available to them. So it's really impacted their life in that way as well. Or service dogs are another one. So I sometimes get police who work really closely with their animals, and are supposed to be these big, brave, tough guys, or women, but so they feel like they can't show their emotions, but they're absolutely devastated, because they've had such a close bond with them.
That's right.
So everyone's situation is unique. It's all different, and they all feel differently for that.
Well, this is kind of a discovery for me, because I am not a pet person, but I have seen a lot of people having very difficult time, and I never thought that maybe that sort of help was available. I mean, I know it is available in the UK because that's where we are and that's where you are, but this sort of style of communication now is putting you all over the world. So you are having clients all over the world.
Yes, a lot from America, and like I said, I think that's because they found me online. The ones from the UK tend to be that are coming for other things, like I said, or that have been recommended to me by somebody else that has been to see me. So I get quite a lot from that. And I've been in quite a lot of the press over here as well, so magazines and newspapers. So usually after somebody's printed a story about it, then I get a few inquiries after that as well.
Obviously, your clients are English speaking. So, but are there any other countries that you've had, like a sort of curious?
Yeah, the Middle East. So I've had, I've had a few from the Middle East, but they're people who were English people who went out to the Middle East. So I only speak English.
Yes.
So I don't. I'm not very good with other languages, so it has to be an English-speaking person. That can do it. Well, that's the main thing.
I can understand that, but my other question is about kind of culture. Is it culture as much as faith comes into maybe how much you show care and love for a pet? Maybe there is another culture or other cultures that are more like having pets in a more distant way. How do you find that?
Yes, so there are a lot of countries where cats and dogs are not considered as pets, they're considered vermin. I've had a client from Albania but she was English, but her husband was Albanian, so she lives over there, but she set up a sanctuary for dogs. But she said that there are authorities, she said, so I don't know if it's the police or their equivalent, the council or the government, that go around and do mass euthanasia on the street to clear away, and it devastates her, and she tries to get them all back to her sanctuary, but there's only so much money that she can put into it. So there's that kind of thing. So there are definitely different cultures. There are different cultures around therapy as well. So I think America is very comfortable with having therapy. That most people grow up with the idea that it's perfectly natural to have therapy. In some countries, that's not the way. So, I mean, even in England, we have a kind of a stiff upper lip and you shouldn't show your feelings. It's getting a bit better, but there are a lot of people that come to see me who are devastated because they can't get time off work because their employer is just get on with it, you can always go and get another dog. And they don't understand the feelings. So they might get 1 or 2 days off that they have to take as holiday, but they don't get any bereavement leave like you would with a person.
Yes.
Now, it's very contentious because if I was an employer, you wouldn't know if somebody was trying it on and, that they didn't really have these feelings. But I've also, years and years ago, worked for a company where they didn't let somebody have the time off and they made her come into work. And we were in a shop and she was having to serve people and all she did was cry all day. So she wasn't any use to anybody. So they might as well have done the kindest thing and let her have some time off. So it's difficult. People trying to stuff down their feelings just to get through the day. And I get people that come to see me when they drink too much wine and they sort of stuffing down their feelings with food and things or self-medicating because they're having to carry on as though nothing's wrong. But of course, they've still got all this grief inside them.
Right. You made me think, like, my daughter was in London at a university and she was at the student union. And at the time, she was very concerned about all the students at the time of exams. And so she decided to bring pets in, some rabbits, some dogs, some cats that were available to be with the students at the time of a very stressful period. And I thought that was a wonderful idea. Because these kids, these young people have grown up with their dogs, with their cats, with their pets. They come to the university, they haven't got their own, and they're missing them. That I think that is another, not necessarily the loss of a pet through death, but sort of the loss of a pet through other circumstances.
So another situation I've had people come to talk to me about is when they have a divorce and who gets the animal, who gets the pet.
Yes.
So sometimes it might have been, just for instance, the husband's pet, but the wife has grown to love them and be with them, and the husband wants to take the dog or whatever animal it is. So that's a similar thing.
Yes.
Had a few people after COVID, because during COVID they'd bought all these animals when they were home, and then that's why all the shelters are overrun now in England because people are passing them back. There might be disagreements in the family, and so you get one person in the family that is really, really missing that pet. So they come to see me over that, and not all the family is the same. And there were practical reasons why they couldn't keep the pet, but it doesn't stop the person from missing them.
That's right. What about little children? I mean, do you find that there is a growing kind of like nurseries having you coming to talk to children about pets? I mean, is there a space for educating youngsters to look after pets, but also being ready to part from them?
I think that is a great idea because if you, most people experience the death of a pet, that's their first experience of death that they've had when they're a child. So if you can teach them to deal with it well, or to help them to deal with it well, then that's a good thing. I'm not sure if it would work in a nursery environment because there are so many different personal beliefs and things like that. I think if they had a pet that came in regularly who then passed away, then that would be a really good talking point.
Yeah, I think that will be a very good point. Yeah. Well, finally, what advice would you offer to someone who is currently struggling with the loss of a pet? Like, I mean, give us examples of what are, I mean, you've already talked about it, but maybe you can think of other things that people, I'm struggling, I'm eating a lot, I'm drinking a lot, I'm feeling, yeah, I mean, I don't know. What are other ways of kind of expressing that feeling?
Yeah. As humans, when somebody passes away, we automatically tend to have a funeral or some kind of acknowledgement of the death and celebration of the life. You know, whatever your beliefs are, there is a process that gets followed. And with animals, there isn't a set process.
No.
And I found it really helps if people have some kind of memorial. So it doesn't have to be an urn sitting on a fireplace, if that's not your thing. A lot of people will plant a special flower in their garden, or a rose, or lavender is another one. And they might sprinkle the ashes there. What I would say to anybody is, if you're going to do something like that, do it in a pot, because you wouldn't believe the amount of people that message me and say, I don't know what I'm going to do, we have to move house and I'm going to have to leave all my animals behind because they've either buried them or scattered the ashes in the garden. So if you can do it in a portable way, so in a big pot, or even if you don't have a garden, in a house plant or out in the woods, somewhere where you can get to in the future if you need to.
Yes.
If you have a family, it's a really good idea to make an album, because everyone can contribute, and it's a good talking point and a way to get people to open up and speak about it, especially children. So
I like that one. I really like that one. The album of the pet of the family, really.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you might have somebody who's 6 or 7 might draw some pictures. You might get an older child that wants to write a letter to their pet that they can put in, or do a poem, as well as photographs and things like that. And that is a healthy attitude to all sit there and talk. And if mum or dad want to cry, that's fine. And what that teaches their children is it's okay to cry. Okay?
Yes, absolutely. And again, I mean, I'm from Colombia, I'm from South America, and we are a little bit more effusive, more showing of feelings, right? So for us, crying is okay, laughing is okay. We don't bottle up so much. But I can think, in my experience as working with children in school, yes, definitely, that was something that probably happened to me 3 or 4 times, that I had to deal with these, and children were struggling and families were struggling, and I address that, but no in such a professional way that you're doing it. And I think this is growing and growing, because more and more people are turning into sort of having companions, and as you said, emotional companions that are dogs or cats. Are there any other pets that come into homes?
Yes, so I've had people, a couple with an iguana and other lizards, so that, and I've had a few people with horses as well.
Yes.
So they've been face to face. Where I live, there are a lot of fields and lots of people have horses.
Right.
And so I get quite a few people coming to, because it's a long-lasting relationship usually with the horse.
Absolutely.
Same with some dogs
I
as well.
never thought of that. I really never thought of that. And then maybe people that actually do races or play polo or
one of the things that horse owners say to me is, how could I not have known? How could I have ridden the horse? How could I have been that close and not known that there was a problem?
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that they really blame themselves for quite often.
Right. Well, that was the last question that I had for you. But thank you for your advice. Thank you for coming to our space here, which is called in Spanish, Entre Nos. In English, the translation is in between us. And I hope this one will be the first of many. We're going to have all your details and information on our channel and the description of this video. And I hope to see you again.
Thank you for inviting me.
You're very welcome.